You're listening to Heritage Radio with the inimitable, the one and only, the unique. I almost stumbled on the very first sentence. Yeah, I'd say unique. Why are we not unique?
Oh, we, right, fine.
Both of us. But then again, some people do think that you're my carer, my personal carer. This is DBK and Insar Hack with our usual breakdown of the news. We like to call it the Trues, but unfortunately Russell Brand has already taken that name. We are on... Bro, you've handed me this piece of paper. I don't know what to do with it. I'm not a professional. What do you think I am?
We have to be professional. We are on Heritage Radio, coming to you from Manchester. Two amazing guys. We're going to talk to you about anything and everything. We have a phone in session, 016one 883 2266, and please continue.
Oh, he's so professional.
Thank you.
So yeah, we're going to cover a couple of stories, but bro, you know what? I thought we'd kick off. I mean, normally we do talk a lot about politics and really we kind of pride ourselves on being the most authentic conversation you'll hear on radio anywhere. But I think, you know what, let's give that a break for now, and let's just talk about a few stories to do with health. I'm not sure if you heard this, but there's an article, a piece of news doing the rounds saying that every hour that you run gives you an extra 7 hours of life.
Oh, wait a minute.
Actually, I'm very suspicious of.
I am as well, because I've done a lot of running, so I should live to be 200 years old.
But bro, mathematically speaking, if you were to run 4 hours every day, that means every day you're adding 28 hours of life to your life expectancy.
Yeah.
That would make you immortal. You just gotta run 4 hours every day and you live forever, literally.
Let's say, where does this come from? Let's look at the origins.
Right, yeah, let's look at the origins. The origins of this is apparently it's a stinking hole called Katie Hopkins' mouth. No, it's not. It's just a light-hearted comment. Katie Hopkins doesn't stink. Scientists at Iowa State University, that's a proper university, claim an hour of running gives you an extra 7 hours of life. Cannot be true. But all right, okay, let's carry on, because I think I know where they're gonna go with this. You can get a lot done in 7 hours, and that's actually quite true, you know.
But how do you prove this? I mean, what kind of experiment would you do to gain 7 hours every day?
Yeah, bro.
And how could you measure it?
In their defense, I think they would have done there would have been some critical examination of data, because you can't really ask 1,000 people to run 1 hour a day and then ask another group not to run an hour a day, and then you take their measurements. Because of the placebo effect, one group will know that they're going to be better off. That's number one. Number two is it's unethical. You can't experiment on groups in that way, I think, anyway.
You know, I'm kind of dubious about this as well. You know, I don't think that, there was that Cambridge study that we talked about ages ago that, exercise only works on a certain ratio of people, depending on, sending people to the gym, blah, blah, blah. Scientists did these experiments and they found that, exercising and running doesn't benefit everybody.
Yeah.
There is that kind of, every human being is different, so you can't judge people in a general fashion.
Do you know, there's in the same way that you have, anytime you have complex systems like biological systems, like the human body, you have something called a Gaussian distribution.
Ooh,
yeah, you love those words, don't you? And basically, that is basically, for example, a Bell distribution for height. You know, the thing that determines your height is like there's millions and millions of factors. Like, were you scared every day of getting Beats International or something, or did you grow up in a household where you had a lot of anxiety? Having anxiety releases cortisol. Cortisol affects the way that you process nutrients. It affects your body, So my point is, the nutrients available, the stress or not stress, the exercise, all these things will come together to change your ultimate height when you grow to a certain, when you reach maturation.
I didn't know that, I thought it was based on your parents, on your kind of biology, your genetics, so to speak.
Well, a good example, nice little experiment is this experiment called North Korea. Like, when you look at North Korea, it's a very tragic but very interesting experiment, because you got a country just sliced in half, and then you look at certain parameters, like for example height, life expectancy, and you've got a very solid experiment that normally is very unethical. But as you have with totalitarian regimes, they're not really big on the ethics. So bro, you can actually see there's a height difference in South Koreans.
Wow.
Yeah, and bro, bro, I don't want to be too explicit, but certain appendages are measurably different in size.
Yeah, head size, eyes,
the
nose.
weights, the IQ, everything you can imagine, because human beings are biological systems.
Yeah.
You'd expect them to respond accordingly.
So anyway, let's get back on course.
Right, so Gaussian distribution just means you have a variation, a Bell distribution. So in the same way you have it for height, you're going to have it for exercise response.
Yeah,
like how you respond to exercise is going to be varied in the same way that height is varied. So for some people, you know, like your Shaquille O'Neals, the top fraction of a percent, they're going to respond very, they're called super responders. A little bit of exercise goes a long way. And then you've got on the other end of the spectrum, Danny DeVito, or in that example, people who don't respond to exercise. But, yeah, sorry.
You know, I was going to say, you know, I have nothing against exercise. We both exercise.
I thought you were going to say Danny DeVito. I got nothing against Danny DeVito.
He's cute, Danny DeVito.
When he played Penguin in Batman, he was awful.
No.
But apart from that,
Did you think he was awful?
I thought you were going to say something like that.
No.
I didn't think he was awful. How can you think Danny DeVito's awful?
No, I thought it's weird, but I really liked him in Batman. You know, he was so evil, and he's such a contrast because the film was so goody two shoes.
Really? You're gonna go with that one?
Yeah,
I was gonna go with Twins.
Twins.
But that's just the films I grew up with.
Yeah, same
But
here.
yeah, okay. So yeah, go on, Danny DeVito.
Yeah, you know, he's one of my favourite actors, and you know, Batman was one of my. You know, the thing about the Batman movies were when you compare them to today's movies, that there was nothing out of the ordinary about him. It was just a guy in a suit punching people.
We've got our managers come in and he's writing really slowly. Your levels are too high. I think he's writing that. Yeah, that was a really nice guessing game then. Like, what's he writing? What's he writing? What's he writing? How's that? Is that better? Yeah. Can we not introduce you? Yeah, let's introduce it. We've got our manager. He's a very, how would you say? He's a very authoritarian looking gentleman.
No,
and
he's young, cute, and handsome.
He's got a t-shirt that's got lots of cricket sort of paraphernalia on there. Like, I'm just imagining he's going to use a cricket bat to discipline us if we're not careful.
I wouldn't call me your manager. I'm just like the runner of the area.
Can we call you our manager? Can we call?
Listen,
can you
know more than we do, so that makes you manager material.
Can you be our daddy? Now the proper manager's looking at us like, what on earth is going on?
Yeah,
right,
I
okay.
think it's still a bit too high.
Oh, too high. Okay,
Yeah.
right.
Can you do your thing? Work your magic.
I'll have a go.
Right. Anyway, so getting back to the story. Yeah,
What's
apparently
the motivation behind it?
behind
why did
exercise.
why did these universities come out with these studies? I mean, what's the end course for it? I mean, are they paid? Do they have patrons? Is there a specific purpose for them?
I think it's the. I think you can't underestimate how important this thing is. That, you know, these kind of things affect life expectancy, and those things affect the economy, for example. So there's immediately an economic case to be made. You know.
Right.
Anyway, this article carries on that the new research from Iowa is a follow-up study by the 2014 paper published in the Journal of American College and Cardiology, which found that running for even 10 minutes per day is associated with reducing risk of death from all causes and cardiovascular disease. It's analysed fitness data conducted by the Cooper Institute in Dallas. I take that with a pinch of salt.
You know, Americans are big into exercise and running. So are British people, and it's very much a Western phenomenon. You know, where people in the developing world actually, because they live active lives, I don't know, they don't any large recourse to exercise on that kind of scale.
Yeah.
Because the whole day is spent being active.
Yeah.
You know, and because we live kind of separate, inactive lives, basically, the jobs that we do.
Yeah.
You know, we have to kind of find a way to balance the exercise regime. So, you know, it's kind of like, it is a main kind of popular phenomenon for people in the West.
Yeah.
I'm kind of dubious about it, but you know, I will take your opinion or your advice on the matter.
I was going to say we should take it with a pinch of salt, but that does actually increase your risk of cardiovascular disease.
What
so
about
we're not
dancing?
dancing do you know what? There was a really good study done where they showed, I think it was in Germany, where they compared people who do weightlifting exercises. You know, these are all elderly people. They either did weightlifting. I'm not talking Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm just talking lifting weights in a gym. And another group who did dance classes, right? And what they found was the people who did dance classes, I think they had, in certain measurements, more muscle tissue. I think the number of neurons that activate muscle fibers or not, those actually increased. So there were certain things that advantages to dancing that weightlifting didn't have.
Yeah.
And but the biggest finding was when they said, okay, lads and women, we've come to the end of the 10-week trial, time to finish it. The people that were in the dance segment of the group that were being experimented on, they caused a riot, and they're like, no, we want to keep our dancing.
Yeah.
And they actually kicked up a fuss and made sure that the dance classes carried on. So my point is, the moral of the story is sometimes the things that can't be counted. In the study, they were looking at how muscles responded to certain stimuli, but the complexity of human beings is we're psychologically motivated creatures. We're not just muscles, it's the mind that moves the body.
Exactly.
And the people were so motivated to carry on with the dance that ultimately that's the best indicator of an exercise, is how much are you going to carry it on.
Yeah. It's
Right,
interesting.
it is. Should we come back after a couple
we'll
of tracks?
play a nice little song. Hope you enjoy.
Nice. You are listening to Heritage Radio, DBK and Insar, and we're doing the truths, we're doing stories where we dissect them, look at them slightly differently, discuss them, critique them, and spit them out into your brains. Have you got anything to add, broski?
Let's talk about that story about Britain first walking into that Muslim shop in Birmingham.
Let me just really quickly finish this, but that is the next story we're going to do is basically Britain first. They kind of storm into this bookshop where they sell
Islamic books and paraphernalia.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that as the next story, but I just want to finish off the assumptions behind this study that showed that every hour of running gives an extra 7 hours of life. That's a very healthy return on investment. So the 7-hour figure was based on these assumptions: 2 hours of training per week based on the average reported to the Cooper Institute would translate into less than 6 months of your active life of 40 years. This would produce a greater life expectancy of 3.2 years and a net gain of 2.8.
First of all, as my brother would always say, never rely on anything that tells you that you have a set life, because he says, and it's quite true, that we can face death at any time. As a Muslim, he understands that nobody is immune from death, and you can die tomorrow, the day after, or in 50 years. There's no rules in life. So to someone to say that if you jog 1 hour a day and then at the end of your life you will be added on, say, 2.3 years, that is a supposition that you can't really prove, because everybody is different. Do you understand? Nobody can say they're going to live this long or that long. And it's we all live on not borrowed time, but the rules in life never apply in any kind of straightforward fashion. So I wouldn't say if you jog 1 hour a day I will live to 60, 70 and add on 3 years. That's nice in a perfect world, but we don't live in a perfect world.
No, it's less than that. You got to just run 2 hours per week. That's it. 2 hours per week would increase your life expectancy by a net gain of 2.8 years.
So then when that comes to the point, well, how fast do you run? How long do you do? What distance?
Do you know what? This story's making more sense now. We're diverging, because at first we were both at the same position, and now you're thinking more cynically, and I'm thinking actually it does kind of make sense. It's within reason.
Well, any form of exercise is healthy, right? It's good for your body. I'm not denying that. We all know that. But to what extent do you say it adds on life expectancy? You could be add on life kind of expectancy by the food you eat, by the lifestyle. I know. When you look at long distance runners, they look like
skeletal.
Yeah, there's a lot of stress on their faces, on their bodies, and you can see the impact of long-term exercise on the human body. It does. Okay, you're fit and healthy and you can run long distances, but you pay a price. Whereas people who do minimum amounts of exercise and eat properly, probably look far more healthier and may just live as long.
2 hours is minimal. 2 hours per week is minimal. That's a small amount of exercise.
Yeah, I mean, to me, there's different forms of exercise. That's running. But it doesn't say how fast running for how long. But well, it said 1 hour, right? Sorry, but it doesn't say how fast. Is it jogging? Is it medium paced, fast paced? There's that. What's that running called where you're walking dead fast? You know,
Silly.
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
It's that you're wiggling your body in a certain way.
Yeah, and Insar, by the way, is actually doing that motion right now for your edification at home.
Yeah, studio right now,
Yeah.
so please.
Perfect radio. Well, I mean, all right, here's the thing. I think it's important. Like, if you increased, they're saying 2 hours per week. If you increased that to, say, 10 hours per week, then it would maybe add on a little bit more, you know, instead of a net gain of 2.8, maybe it's a net gain of 3. And if you went up to 20 hours a week, which is like marathon runners, they probably train that many hours per week, then it's probably, that you start to plateau. And I think any more than that, if you ran 70 hours a week, you know, 10 hours a day, that'll probably shorten your life expectancy. So this guy does say, you know, although this means 7 hours for every hour spent running, one of the researchers pointed out that that doesn't make you immortal, which is kind of obvious, but still, I think it's when you read the assumptions, it's basically saying, bro, you know, everything to do with diet and nutrition and health and exercise, it's so epically complicated. You know, like the astronomer royal, Sir Martin Rees, described how, you know, astrophysics isn't really that complicated, because the thing that makes something complicated isn't the size of something, it's the number of interactions, it's the feedback mechanisms and these kind of things. So in reality, when you look at any nutritional advice, just be cautious, be old school, because Michael Pollan, the writer, who sort of described it like this, that people who talk about dietitians and nutritionalists, they are basically what surgeons were 300 years ago. They're at the very beginning of something that will become successful eventually, but right now they're at the very beginning of that process.
You know, do you remember that?
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
bro?
I do. You're right. You know, we are at the forefront of a study of a phenomenon that, you know, that kind of requires long-term research and study, you know, and so we're getting there, but slowly. But I was thinking of, like, remember that Horizon program where they looked at fasting, not Muslim-based fasting, but fasting on short periods of time, say 1 day a week. You would just drink green tea or something, and they measured the effects on the human body, and there was a huge drop in sugar levels, cholesterol, you know, all sorts, and the benefits were amazing. And it kind of showed that people who eat less, it's not what you eat as well, it's the quantity rather than just as much as the quality, which has an impact on your body and your health and your lifespan.
Yeah.
And at the end of the program, you know, the presenter made this point that most people in this world, at a certain age, when you get to your 70s to your 80s, you will be on a certain number of pills every day. That has become a certain fact for virtually everybody. You know, whether it's anti-cholesterol or anti-diabetes or whatever.
Statins and
you know, we will all be on, say, half a dozen pills. But he said having this fasting on a regular basis reduces the risk of having so much medication in later life. So when you're talking about this study about exercise, it kind of ties in, because exercise kind of burns off the food that you've eaten, it burns off the calories, and I think there could be a little correlation there with the extended lifespan, because fasting does increase your lifespan as well, which they found out. They did study in there's some island of Japan where the population lived way past 100, and they couldn't figure out why, or you know, what was the reason. And over time of study, they realized that these people ate very little. You know, it wasn't, they ate the basic foods like everybody else.
No, I think it was loads of stuff. It was loads of facts. Number one, they ate moderately. But number two is that they have a very high fish protein. They have high levels of omega-3. And a lot of disease is associated with inflammation. And
Oh yeah, you were telling me about it.
Yeah, so the basis of inflammation to a large degree is the fact that we shifted away from having, in nature, where we evolved, the genes that we we have, you have a ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 that is 1 to 3, something like that, or 1 to 2 even. But in Western diets, it's a ratio of 1 to 40. You know, such a skewed ratio. And omega-3 is anti-inflammatory, omega-6 is inflammatory. And so a lot of diseases have the, let's say, the substrate to exist once you have those sort of preconditions.
So kind of advise me now, you know, what kind of fish should I eat? Talk to me and the audience.
Right, so the fish, the ideal fish are the ones that they store the fat in their body instead of just their liver. Because you have like cod liver oil, because cod will store the fat, omega-3, they'll store it in their liver. But you want oily fishes like mackerel, salmon, I think sardines, things like that. So I try and have one portion of fish every day.
So pilchards as well, do you say?
No, mackerel and salmon, they're the ones that I have mostly.
Right, because I eat a lot of tuna, and I need some advice now. Is that a bad thing?
I don't think it's bad, but I think having it in moderation, because I think it has high mercury content. It doesn't have particularly high omega-3, so you're not getting any omega-3 benefit from that.
Right.
Let me give you one ratio. The Japanese make up 1% of the world's population, but they make up 5% of fish consumption. Just think about that for a sec. How crazy is that?
That's insane.
Yeah. And so, you know, you have this you know, they eat less calories, but then they eat less calories and they have more fish in their diet. So it's a different type of calorie. I think we've got a caller on the line. Can you hear us?
Yes. Assalamu alaikum.
Hi. What's your name, brother?
Muhammad from Manchester.
Muhammad, how you
Salman.
doing? Salman.
They immigrate once a year.
Yep.
And they go to rivers. When they go to river, they eat mice. Assalamu alaikum.
They eat mice? Did you say they eat mice? What kind of mice are in the rivers?
I think we didn't hear him properly. I don't think he said mice. Sounded like mice.
Yeah. Because I don't think there's many mice in the water.
Yeah.
I mean, I might have been watching the wrong documentaries growing up.
No, he said they emigrate once a year. Obviously, it means when they go for breeding.
Probably not to America, because Donald Trump will stop them.
Diet and health is a major issue, especially with Asian people. And we have a very, very rich diet, to put it mildly. And obviously our generations are changing.
You can say rich, but I'd say poor.
Rich as in the sense too much oils, too much fat.
I'm being silly.
I know. I'm glad to know that our generation, our friends and family, they have learned from the mistakes of our parents' generations, and they eat a lot more grilled food. They use a lot of olive oil in their food too now, rather than something like vegetable oil or ghee, which is very fucking is very
yeah. Go on, I'm listening.
Is very dangerous. I was gonna add.
This is Heritage Radio, and we are going to be back after this little documentary called The News. I think it's called The News, and we'll do a little bit more about health, and then we'll talk about Tony Robinson and Britain First.
Tony Robinson.
Yeah, is it Tony Robinson? I forget his name.
No. Tommy Robinson.
Tommy Robinson. Right, we'll be back soon.
Heritage Radio.